Good afternoon. I'm Eleanor Levy, the Folk Arts Program Coordinator at Artsmith Hudson. And this week we've been doing interviews. And tomorrow for Friday, you're going to get a special interview from my father, Louis Michael Levy, who everyone calls Mike except for his children who call him Dad. So we're going to talk to my father about his family and in specific, his father's business in Berkeley, California. And the day I'm recording it today, it's Thursday, May 21st, 2020. And everyone, this is my father, Mike. So Dad, tell me about, lower it a little bit because we're losing your chin. Perfect.
Okay, I'll hold it that way.
Okay, so tell us about how Grandpa Sam came to own a store.
Well, my father, after World War I, moved to Berkeley. About that time, I think my parents were married sometime in the early 20s, and my dad started his store on Shattuck Avenue, right next to the American Trust Building, in a small store with my uncle. Oh God, my father's brother-in-law. I'm just having a moment. Uncle Adolf, and they were doing very well till 1929 when the crash occurred, and apparently Uncle Adolf had bought a bunch of stock and bought it in the store's name, and everything went broke. They lost everything. And for about a year, my father worked for his former competitor for several months, and then put together enough money to open the store in virtually the same location on Shattuck, and he called it Lee's Men's Store. And he had a partner, Sam Goldine, who came from Central California, where he went broke, and they started together. They were able to put together enough money to open a store. And after the Depression in about 1932, when they opened the store, Lee's Men's Store, things started to go very well. By 1935, they were very prosperous and doing well. In fact, I remember getting a new car for my mom. My father never drove. He never drove a car. He did fly an airplane. He did have a pilot's license. And in later years before the war and then after the war, we had airplanes, but that's another story. And he never learned how to drive. My mom always did the driving, or my two older brothers, and then me. And we were always the ones that drove my dad around at any time. That was always an adventure because my dad's friends always had some project they were going into. We had to go visit, so on.
Is that also why you got to travel with him when he came back east?
Well, what we used to do is we used to go at least twice a year. We take the train to, oops, it says low battery here. I'm going to go to low battery mode.
Okay.
He would take the train to Los Angeles. Wait a minute, I'm going to plug in the extra battery. There.
Yeah, and pull it down a little. Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, I've got the extra battery in.
Okay.
We would take the train to Los Angeles to pick up the chief from Los Angeles with his compatriots, is the best way to describe it. And not actually people he was in business with, but people he know in business. And my two older brothers and myself and my mom, we used to go to New York. And my father would do his buying in New York at least twice a year. This is before the war. And so I was pretty small when we did that. Let's see, my brother Sanford was 9 years older than me, and my brother Joe was 6 years older than me. I was born in 1931, so you can figure back from that. Um, Uncle Brother Sanford was killed in World War II in an air when he was learning how to fly in the Navy, and he was killed by a student. But that's another story.
Right.
But we used to go back east, and um, uh, I think, and I'm not completely sure, but I think we stayed at the Waldorf Astoria because it was convenient to everything my dad had to do, and then we'd take the train back again.
Yeah.
And in those days, it was almost 5 days from Southern California, or actually from Oakland to the east, and it was one big party. My job was to keep the drinks glasses full, keep the scotch going all the
Right.
time.
Yeah, Dad, we lost video on you.
Well, yeah, I think we lost video because the low battery
Okay. Well,
on the,
we'll just
mom's.
keep going. The sound is the most important thing. So,
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Where would you like me to go on this?
um, I have to think. So, well, you said you came to Poughkeepsie once. Why don't you talk about that for a minute?
I came to the what?
You said you came to Poughkeepsie once.
I don't remember going to Poughkeepsie. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
that's
I
okay.
I think we really were in Manhattan 99% of the time, and we went out to Brooklyn
Mhm.
quite a bit to visit factories and did business with people in the factories, and it was and most of the people we dealt with in New York. This is before World War II, and they were all Orthodox Jews, and we had to stop working at about noon on Friday if we were there because they were going to go to shul
Mhm.
and they were going to get ready for the weekend. It was, uh, I was what, um, 4, 5, and 6, or
Mhm.
5, 6, and 7. So I had some funny impressions about it, of just being there more than anything else and being part of it. And my father always told me, sit and listen, you'll learn. And that's what the situation was. And we did buying for the store, and it was apparently quite profitable because what he would find in New York, he couldn't find in the Bay Area, or they
Mhm.
didn't call. But going forward from during the war, salesmen called on us. We didn't call on them. We didn't go anyplace. Um, During the war, my father was gone for some of it, early part of the war. Something he did for the Navy, but I'm not sure what it was.
Mhm.
And some of this is fuzzy, but the simple reason, in 1941, when the war started, I think I told you or may have related to you, in December 7th, we were all set to go to a demonstration professional football game at Kezar Stadium. Uh, and my father was involved with partners, to sponsor or be part and sponsor whether they were going to be involved in a professional football league. And this is 1941. Of course, when the war broke, and that Sunday, we never did get to that football game at Kezar. I can't even remember whether it ever came off because my brother Sanford put on his uniform. He was in the Naval ROTC at Cal in his senior year, and he reported for duty and was gone for several weeks. before it was actually called active duty.
Hmm.
And my dad, who had been in World War One as a naval officer, also reported, and he was called in, and he did something for a couple of months, came back, and then disappeared for about a year down in Australia, and then he was discharged. He was not discharged. He was let from that and came back to the Bay Area, and then he did something with the Navy, but I don't know what it was. I
Hmm.
really don't.
Who ran the
Um,
store while he was gone?
well, his partner Sam Goldine was there, but my dad was in and out quite a bit, except for that 1 year.
Hmm.
And they ran the store. My dad ran the store probably from the middle of the war on, and it
Hmm.
was quite prosperous, extremely prosperous. In the meantime, in 1939, they moved to the current location. No, actually, 36, they moved to the current location at 2010 Shattuck, but they had half the store. And then in 1939, they took over the whole store, a double wide store, 6,000 square feet, with tailored clothing and shoes and hats and work clothes mainly. And during the war, it was mainly work clothes that they
Hmm.
sold. Um, and it was quite popular because um, uh, they had merchandise and they knew, and people used to come there. It was a very busy operation. And I guess I was about, let's see, 1942. I would have been 11 years old, and I was in the store all the time. And when finally junior high, I was at Garfield, and I'd come after school and work. When I was at Berkeley High, which was downtown, I would work all the time,
Hmm.
except one 3 months period. I thought I was going to go out for football in my sophomore year, and but I only weighed 115 pounds, and even with all the football gear, there was no way I could survive. So I gave it up.
They saw pictures of you and mom like right when you got married, so they do have pictures of when you were really, really skinny, that people saw
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago. Grandpa Sam seemed to be quite a character. Didn't he have part ownership in a racetrack?
Well, in 19 now again this in 1939, um, Slip Madigan, Ed Madigan, Slip Madigan, who'd been the coach at St. Mary's College, was one of my daddy's drinking and card playing buddies. And he finished at St. Mary's as coaching football, um, and he started the Albany racetrack. And somehow my dad was involved. I really don't know how. I think it was through my father's attorney, who later became a judge, Bernie Abbott, and they were. He was in. Dad was involved in Golden Gate Fields racetrack,
Hmm.
and Golden Gate Fields was due to open up in 1941, um, in the fall, and it opened up, I believe, in August, September. And the only thing I can remember is it rained almost the whole month of August and September, and the track was always flooded, and they couldn't use it.
Hmm.
And then it started to dry out a little bit, and then the war came on. And when the war came on in December of 1941, the Navy took it over, and after the war, uh, the Navy refurbished it, and it became a very successful racetrack at that time. And again, my father was involved, and I'm not sure what, but we went there almost every day to go to when they were racing. They weren't racing 12 months. They would race during a meeting time. I believe it's 2 months, and then
Mhm.
there'd be 6 more months and nothing, and then racing again. And we'd be out there all the time. Um, I don't think we owned the horses. I think my dad was part of the ownership of the
Mhm.
track
Mhm.
at that time. It's
Wow.
all I can remember in that one. Yeah, I'm talking about the period. Let's see, I was 14 to 15 years old,
Right.
and I was enjoying myself. One of the things during World War II, at 14, you could get a driver's license. Now, it was supposed to be a limited driver's license, only drive with a licensed driver and not at night. But of course, we took advantage of if I got behind the wheel, I would go whatever my dad wanted me to go. And we drove, I did all the driving um, at that time. Um, if I recall at that time, we had a Pontiac. At that time, yeah, we did have a Pontiac, a 1940 Pontiac, um, four-door car.
Mhm. What year
Yeah,
did Grandpa die? Because he died right after you guys got married. You and Mommy got married.
yeah. My dad died in 1952.
52.
Um, yeah, we got married in February of 52. My dad, no, no, I'm sorry. It would have been 19, yes, it would be 1952 because after we got married in 1952, February 14th, 1952, excuse me,
February 10th, Daddy.
February 10th, 1952, we spent 3 days to drive to Sun Valley, Idaho. And we got to Sun Valley, Idaho, and we were going to spend a month learning how to ski and skiing on our honeymoon. However, I got a phone call from my brother Joe that I had to report for active duty. I was in the Navy Reserve. The Korean War was on, and then they decided they needed my unit, and I had to report for active duty. But because I had not been to basic training, I had to go to, I believe it was a 12 or 14 week boot camp in San Diego. And so I was transferred to, we had a week's after we got home and I reported for duty. They gave me a week's delay in orders, and I took a train to San Diego. And we had my basic training or boot camp in San Diego. And then I was stationed there to become a dental technician in San Diego for another, I think it was 16 weeks there. And of course, we were married. Mom moved to San Diego, and we had a wonderful time in San Diego, really. Except for duty occasionally. In the afternoon, we go to the beach, and we had a very relaxing few months while we were there. And then when I graduated from dental technician school, I was transferred to San Francisco to Hunters Point Shipyard as a dental technician, where I served for another 2 years
Right.
there.
But you
And
had, as
we
already,
lived.
as the story I always was told that you had to come straight back from your honeymoon. Like once you got the call, you
Oh,
had to turn around and come back.
yes, correct. We got a call that afternoon. We had to turn around, start back the next day, and sort of a funny story. We drove back, and we stayed in Reno overnight, and we were staying at this hotel. I can't remember which one, and we happened to walk into the gift shop, and there in the gift shop was mom's our china dishes. And we talked about it and found out we couldn't get our dishes. Whatever, which one was it? The china, the good china dishes, and they had the whole set there.
Oh, how
And
funny.
so we bought it, and the joke probably was there were 10 brides in Reno who wanted those dishes, and we took them all.
Yeah,
And I think Sally has the dishes
she
now.
does. She does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other interesting thing about my father being a dental technician is the dentist he served under.
Oh yes, yeah. The dentist I served with, Wes Reisedorf, actually was a local. His father was a police officer who was one of my father's compatriots, so to speak, that he knew quite well. And when I served with him, and then he later got transferred to Korea to a cruiser as a dentist. But then when he came, when the Korean War ended or we finished our service, he became my dentist,
Became
and
our
also my
dentist.
yeah, all our dentists, and also became a very good friend of ours and neighbor. So it was quite a quite a connection on that one too.
So,
Though he passed away recently.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he had passed away years ago.
Oh no, it wasn't that long ago.
Huh.
Maybe 5 years ago or so he passed
I
away.
thought it was
But he
decades.
stopped. Yeah, he had stopped practicing quite a while before.
So let's go back to so Grandpa Sam died in 1952,
Correct.
not long after you and Mom got married. What happened to the store?
What happened to the store? Well, um, my dad's partner and I never got along. Absolutely never got along. I would I was still on active duty, and I had to because I was on active duty. Occasionally, I'd have the duty on weekends, so I couldn't come to the store and work. When I finished my active duty, I was going to go work in the store. My brother Joe was working there, and Goldine's two sons were working there, and I did not get along with Mr. Goldine. I
Hmm.
absolutely did not. And we got into, I don't remember what it was, but he fired me,
Hmm.
and um, I, I I left the store,
Hmm.
and I had to find a living, and I could have worked at a couple of friends of my father's friends, but I decided to get completely out of it, and I sold life insurance for about 10 years
I remember
uh,
that.
for Prudential Life Insurance Company. I guess I was pretty good. I really didn't like it. I did not like the people I was working with, is the best way to describe it. And so after 10 years, I decided it was just, I didn't want to continue. So I happened to say something to my brother Joe, who had also left the store and had has started his own business in Fremont, and he was not doing that well in Fremont, and he decided he was going to go as a salesman for this company in San Francisco called Sundeck. And he said, well, they're looking for somebody else, and why don't you come in and talk to him? So it would have developed that Joe didn't want to stay in the Bay Area. For some reason, he wanted to move to Los Angeles, which he did. I don't remember why. Oh, I know what it was. He was going to leave Sundeck and go to work for another company. I'll think of the name in a minute. Farrah Clothing Pants Company. He went to work for Farrah Pants Company as the salesman in Los Angeles, and I took essentially took his job as a salesman for Sundeck. Now, I was one of their salesmen, and when I started to call, um, in Central California, and some of the stores I would go in as a salesman, and they knew my father, and they knew who I was, and apparently I was pretty good at what I was doing there. Eventually, within a year and a half, I was the sales manager, and then I was part of the ownership of the company. But that was later on. But I was pretty good as a salesman for Sundek. In fact, I was doing it the before I was left there after 7 or 8 years. I was doing like 90% of the business of the company as both the sales manager and dealing with larger firms. I opened up this one firm down in Texas, Gibson's discount chain of 500 stores, and I used to have a lot of fun going to Texas. It was like shooting fish in a barrel is the best way to describe it.
Yeah. And how long did the store last after you and Uncle Joe left? You know?
Not too much longer after that. They closed the store, and John Goldine, one of the sons, opened up what he called a jean, just specializes in jeans only. And the store was closed, but and there was some difficulty in doing it because it's still my mother and my brother and I still own the store, a portion of the store. But once I was fired, I had to step out of it completely. And that's when I started to sell insurance. And I was okay with selling insurance. And this is my own thing. The people I was working with at Prudential Insurance Company were all very, very religious. And they used to have Bible sessions a couple of times a week. A couple of times I joined it, and I don't know, I didn't sit well with it. And when I left and became a salesman on the road, I remember running into some of the insurance salesmen. They said, "Oh, you're just selling suits and things." And I said, "Well, yeah, sort of. But when I walk into a store, they're happy to see me." Yeah, it was a different kind of thing. That I was essentially selling people who really were happy to see me. When I was selling insurance, even after I sold insurance, I'm thinking, gee, I sold them a policy, and they're really not happy to see me. Yeah, but it was later on. I guess I was pretty good at what I did, and now that I've become an ownership of Sundek, when I left there, I went to work for. We actually went to work for Coretta of California men's division, and then Coretta of California became part of Levi Strauss, and essentially I was vice president of sales of that division for some time. But that's another whole chain of things that happen.
Well, Daddy, thank you. I think that covers pretty well.
Okay. Does that give you enough to do something with it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry I sort of wandered all over rather than sticking to a single topic.
No, that's okay. We took a trip and it was a good trip. So
okay.
So
well, thank you, Kai.
You're welcome. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.